The Indiana Jones movies are all about adventuring for lost treasures, and the titular character has to jump through many hoops to find them. He has to solve puzzles, fight bad guys, and encounter the local wildlife. Yes, a staple of these movies is Indy having to navigate through a bunch of animals people would instinctively run away from. For example, you got snakes, eels, and rats.
He hates rats. He's scared to death of them.
But the focus of this video is going to talk about all the insects shown, which are primarily in the Temple of Doom and Kingdom of the Crystal Skull. I'll list some general facts about the insects and how these movies either dramatized or inaccurately depicted them. Without further delay, let's get started. I'll start with 2008's Kingdom of the Crystal Skull and their depiction of Hymenoptera, which consists of bees, wasps, and in this case, ants. For context, the protagonist and villains are chasing each other through the Brazilian Amazon, and they end up crashing their cars into hills, and unfortunately disturb a colony of Siafu. Or as Indy eloquently puts it, big damn ants, go! So now everyone has to run. These ants can get up to 2.4 inches long, or 6 centimeters, and are native to most of Africa, as well as parts of Asia, which illustrates the first error. These things are not native to Brazil or the Americas at all. They also just don't eat humans. They'll attack them if they're in the way, but they won't be pulling anyone back to the colony. That fact makes this shot of them climbing one another World War Z style to be highly exaggerated. Speaking of which, let's elaborate on the ant strength and behavior in this scene, because it is exaggerated to heck and back. For reference, they actually end up carrying a guy back to the colony, and this would just never happen. Ants can carry 10 to 50 times their weight, and if we assume these ants are 1 gram big, they can hold 50 grams each at maximum. As well, let's assume this man is 200 pounds, or around 90 kilograms. This means that it would require around 1,800 ants to carry this man into that ant colony. And there clearly aren't that many, meaning this would never happen, so don't worry about this happening to you. Anyways, this running turns into a big fight scene between Indy and some military dude who's had it out for him the whole movie. Well, how do you have a fight when you're chased by giant Siafu? Well, you scare the ants off with the low hum of the Crystal Skull, of course. This is surprisingly one of the more accurate things in the movie, since ants will avoid an area if the sound is not to their liking. Though, I don't think they will make a perfect circle like that, but eh. Anyways, after a back and forth of blows, Indy is victorious, and the Russian guy falls out of the ring. He is then eaten alive, but not before tasting a few right beforehand. Sorry, that's a disturbing visual. I'll switch to something more family-friendly. There we go. Anyways, that got me thinking, how nutritional are ants? I found a lot of articles surprisingly pointing to vary, saying that the little guys are high in protein, iron, zinc, and a whole lot of other things. With how small they are, they make a good substitute for rice, which is good for me because, frankly, quinoa hasn't been doing it. With all this talk of food, though, let's go back to another one of Indy's adventures. Indiana Jones and the Temple of Doom has the archaeologist in India being served an extravagant meal at the fictional Pankot Palace, and who could refuse? From snake surprise to eyeball soup. Chilled monkey brains, anyone? But alas, our focus here are the boiled beetles, aptly named Crispy Coleoptera. Wait, crispy? Huh, that's what they're actually called. Before I talk about the beetles, I have to address the biggest issue with this scene. Hinduism is the biggest religion of India, and from my research, many facets of it forbid the eating of meat, notably beef. So this entire dinner scene is just racist from start to finish. The leaders of Pankot do secretly belong to an evil cult, and a supposed scrap scene has Indiana note that the people at dinner weren't Hindus, which would explain the food choices. But even if that was the case, this scene doesn't respectfully depict India and its culture, and is sadly a trend that plagues this film. Getting back to these beetles, they seem to resemble Dinastinae, or rhinoceros beetles. While these do exist in India, the horns on these indicate a likeness to elephant beetles, which are only found in Central and South America. The rhino beetles native to India are Aristides rhinoceros, which have a less elongated horn. When it comes to eating though, this guy's the right idea ripping off the exoskeleton beforehand, because those things are hard to chew.
He started singing some R. Kelly, that helped.
Fun fact, the beetles in this movie are actually made with rubber and filled with custard. Yum. I unfortunately couldn't find anything about how beetles would usually be prepped, but an article from the Maine Organic Farmers and Gardeners Association has recipes for a marinade in cookies. Apparently, they can also substitute for croutons and salad, which is good for me because, frankly, croutons haven't been doing it for me lately. Later in the movie, Indy feels cold in his room, only to realize that the palace is poor insulation. Really poor insulation. After some investigating, he's put in a life or death situation with Short Round, and it's up to Willie to save them. Now, for as much backlash as this character gets, she's a stronger person than I'll ever be, because what is this? There's too many insects to go around, so this will be a quick fire round. 3, 2, 1, go! First you got some crickets, those exist in India. Next you got some Madagascar hissing cockroaches, which are surprisingly only native to Madagascar. You have a Phasmatosauros crawling up Short-Round's leg, they can be native to India. Willie has a male harlequin beetle that climbs up her leg, and you can tell it's a male based on the forelegs. They also aren't in India. The diamond in the literal rough here is the giant prickly stick insect, which used to only exist in Australia before they also migrated into Willie's nightmares. There are also apparently Hercules beetles present, but I could not find them for the life of me. Props to the production team though for gathering about 30 to 50,000 insects for this scene, and to actress Kate Capshaw for having multiple of these creepy crawlies on her. Like I said, Willie's a stronger person than I'll ever be. And those are the main appearances of insects in the Indiana Jones series. While not as consistently dangerous as some of the other dangers the archaeologist faces, they prove that in order to get that fortune and glory, you may need to be bugged a few times to do so. Since there probably won't be another Indiana Jones film, I luckily will not have to revise this video, which is good for me because frankly I just want this video to end.